Hey guys, we're in Zechariah chapter 5. And remember, we are still in that evening where Zechariah is having all of these visions. There are two visions that we see in Zechariah chapter 5. The first one is of a flying scroll, and the second one is of a woman in a basket. So this prophecy, this vision of this flying scroll. Okay, there's some interesting things about the flying scroll. First of all, the scroll is open so that everybody can read it. And I know on these videos I keep saying, and scholars say, and scholars say. It's important that when you're doing research, you check out what scholars say. I'm not going to give you, this is what I think it is. I've got opinions about stuff, but I'll always check it against scholarship. Really good commentaries that you can find online or different books, and I will triple check and quadruple check and just see. And sometimes there's agreement, sometimes there's disagreement. When you come to some of these sorts of things, there's a lot of interesting things to think about, and some are very, very obvious what they are, and some are a little bit more, open to discussion. The flying scroll indicates that it is put out there for everybody to see, and the scholarship suggests that the scroll contains on it a curse that is written down and understood and then read by transgressors of God's people. And there's the idea is that it is taken to be clearly read by those that have hurt God's people and taken into the land of the transgressors. So what is on the scroll? The scroll contains two different sides. It's written on both sides. On one part of the scroll, let's see, what verse is this? We're in verse 3. You see on one side of the scroll, theft is addressed, and on the other side of the scroll, anyone who swears falsely will be banished. So that's interesting because those are two of the 10 commandments. One is written on one side, one's written on the other. There are images of the 10 commandments on this scroll, but specifically what it says the scroll is, it is the curse that is going out over the whole land. So read Deuteronomy 28, and you will see a curse that is specifically indicated on people that will go against God's ways. You rebel against Him, you disobey Him, there is a curse. Read about that curse in Deuteronomy 28, and this flying scroll is basically to hold people accountable. It is very clear. You are without excuse. You can see it. And this is a vision that Zechariah has of how clearly God's ways are going to be communicated to both God's people and the enemies of God's people. That is the first part of Zechariah 5. The second part is about a woman in a basket. So the angel shows Zechariah this basket that's got a lead lid to it, and when you look inside the basket, there is a woman in the basket, and the woman is a picture of wickedness, and she is the personification of wickedness. And the lid is pushed back down on her, and then there are these two winged women. There are two other women that have wings, and they carry off this basket. They carry it between heaven and earth, and they're taking it back to the country of Babylon, and that's where it's going to stay. So this is a picture of the wickedness that is being removed, and not permanently, because the people still had problem with sin, of course, but it's the picture that God's plan is that wickedness be removed from the heart of God's people and taken away, and it is flown out, and it's taken back to the land of the enemies of God's people. It is the enemies of God's people in Babylon where this is flown back to. And those are two images that we see in Zechariah chapter 5. And the whole point is that God wants to clearly communicate what He wants you to avoid so that you can not live a cursed life. He wants you to live a life free of wickedness. And this is one more vision that communicates what God is interested in with His people, where He wants His people to go. And remember, Zechariah is a prophet who is speaking for God to the people about what God wants. Do what God wants. Return to Him. He will return to you. You will be God's people, and you will be successful at what you're about to do. For them, it was rebuild Jerusalem. For you, it could be rebuilding your life, or you may be in a hopeless spot. And Zechariah is encouraging words written to people who need to be brought out of a hole, out of a pit, and God is with them. Remember, these people had been in captivity and exile for 70 years. That 70 years is coming to an end. They're coming back home, and this is God preparing the scene. They'd just throw them into a situation with no preparation and leadership. God has a lot of leadership through the prophets, and he specifically tells them what he wants from them. And he's doing the same thing for us. So that's Zechariah chapter 5. Thanks so much for doing the Bible together.